Today we're going to have a conversation where we are looking at the national census and the national budget conversation, where we're going to be looking at two sides of a coin, where data meets decision. So today I'm going to be your host for this Sauti podcast, and my name is Ruthie Aceng, and I have some people here with me. Please introduce yourselves.
My name is James Tumusiime. I work for RAHU and Uganda as the country director. I'm happy to be here for this particular podcast. Thank you.
And I am Esther Nankya. I am a veterinary doctor by profession, and I am also the Vice Chairperson of the National Youth Council. I am glad to be part of this discussion. Thank you.
You're very welcome on this podcast. So, as we venture into the national census and the national budget conversation, I'm going to kick off by asking our country director, Mr. James Tumusiime, do you like the direction of the national budget? Do you think it captures the main issues that are brought out in the national census results?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jen. I have taken the time to try and understand the figures and the thinking behind the national budget. And if you ask, does it rhyme with the census? The census budget places Uganda as a very young population, with 73.2% of our people being below 30 years. And therefore, that population calls for, especially the primary builders of social capital development, that is health, that is education, and social services, generally issues of water and sanitation, etc. So looking at the direction of the budget, there is an attempt to direct funding towards those critical areas, an attempt to provide for issues of education, especially skilling. There's an attempt to strengthen primary health care. There is a general attempt to make sure that our services get closer, looking at the determinants of growing population, for example, issues of immunization, issues of water and sanitation. I think on the surface, on the look of things, the budget looks responsive to the growing population that we are. Of course, there are many other areas that we could point efforts to where we could do better, but on the surface, my immediate answer is that yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. So you have highlighted that the national census results highlights that there is a very big number of young people in this country, almost making 70% of the national population. So, Miss Dr. Nankya, I'm going to ask you whether you think that the national budget, that the 2024-2025 national budget is reflective of the 70% of the young people in this country, and how are the young people involved in the process of influencing the national budget?
Thank you, Ruthie. According to the budget, truth is when I read the budget, I tried to understand. I saw that government is really trying to provide for that percentage. There is goodwill of government to provide services. When you look at the budget for health, the budget for education, the budget for primary health care, like you had my colleague James saying, there is goodwill. And the main challenge of young people being unemployment, there is a strategy for government to try to fight that unemployment or try to support the young people in that area. However, for me, the strategies that are being planned for, including PDM, including programs like PDM, programs like GROW, I don't know if they're really sustainable to me, because we have seen such programs like the Youth Livelihood Program, where a lot of money is being given to the young people, and maybe on ground, actually the money is not being put to great use, to what was thought it should do. So personally, I think maybe government should try. Okay, the money has already been put in place, has been planned to be put in place for that, to fight unemployment. But now maybe strategies need to change on how to ensure that young people get employed. You understand, Ruthie?
Yes.
So maybe there should be a review on such programs and maybe recommendations. National Youth Council has been doing monitoring and evaluation of such government programs, and there are recommendations we've given to the Ministry of Gender through reporting to them, through giving them reports from the field. And we think there should be something, there should be another way of attacking that challenge that government should use. But then that was not yet put into the plan according to the budget that was released recently.
Okay. So I get that the National Youth Council is supposed to be a platform that represents the young people in this country, voices their opinions, puts them at a pedestal where they are easier accessed. So how do you involve young people in a process like the budget, the finance budget? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ruthie. Young people get involved at the district level. Actually, at the national level, we usually have few representatives, or none, I should say. That is the truth. But at the district level, we have youth councillors. The male and the female youth councillor, they're also under the youth council or the leadership of the young people. Those are the people that help out with the budgeting. So the budgeting, as the budgeting process is starting at the district level, those two represent youth in the district council meeting where budgeting actually takes place. So that is the only area we can come in as young people to support the budgeting process. Unfortunately, at the national level, we are not consulted anywhere. We are not even included. But then at the district level, that is where the young people are included.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Nankya. So now I'm going to get back to you, Mr. James Tumusiime. You had earlier said that you think the budget is very responsive. It's very responsive of the data results for the national census. So my question is, I'm sure we have all at least tried to get acquainted with the census data, where there is about 50.2% of young children in this country. So what does that say about family planning? In looking at the national budget, do you think the government has put that into consideration in reducing the population of the country from being about half of the population being young people?
Yeah, thank you, Jen Ruthie. I think from what I said earlier is that on face value, the surface presentation, a budget is not only about what is presented and the good speeches that the Honorable Minister gives, but also the actual implementation of budget and the key drivers that push the budget. One is, if you look, what are the aspirations of a very young population like that? Of course, we cannot be speaking about necessarily population control, because that's also a human rights issue. And what are the key drivers that push the population to grow up? And for me, there are so many things tied together. Population is growing because young girls who are below 18, who are below 20, are getting pregnant and getting to give birth before their time. And these are people that could have otherwise been in skilling programs, could have been in employment, could have been in actual school, the so-called NETs, not in education, not in employment, and not in any form of training. So when they now become parents, they increase the burden. So what are we able to do to make sure that we reduce the number of young women and girls, especially who are in the so-called net space, is we have to create alternative education for those that drop out of school. We have to make school friendly. You've seen a number of schools in this country which are very unfriendly by their own setup. They have no infrastructure. I was watching a program recently and they were saying for Uganda to match up with at least an average infrastructure, we need to add up to 8,000 schools, more than what we already have in the country, to make a good number of people access decent education due to decent infrastructure. So there is the issue of infrastructure, there is the issue of friendliness. Are the schools stocked with teachers, with supplies, etc., to make sure that people remain attracted? The dropout rate of school-going children in Uganda is approximately 90%. Every 1 million people that join P1, about 10% of them reach tertiary level. 90% find their way out from P7, senior 4, etc. So there are many factors that prevent people from staying in school. And of all the building blocks of human capital development, Beyond health, which is immediate, education is the other critical one. If people are educated, then they have alternatives in their lives. They have things to look out to. You'll not tell people to prevent early pregnancy if they're actually in a meaningful education system. They will be there. They'll get the skills. They will know how to value their lives. They will know how to assert themselves. The patriarchy that we speak about, where older men come and take advantage of girls, will significantly drop down, because the first and foremost is education keeps girls in schools. Education gives a chance to girls to stay safe from every other communal hazards. So that's a critical issue that we have to look at. There are things that are, for example, the capitalization grant of UPE. This is money that I hear people speaking about, and it's really been at the lowest for a very long time, where a person is being budgeted for about 1 to 2,000 shillings to run them through school. That's very, very little. You find a school with no chalkboard, with no basic things, and therefore it becomes hard. You look at basic things like menstrual health for women and girls. These are campaigns we've run for a very long time. But we are still at a space where girls are dropping out of school because of menstrual health ignorance, menstrual health commodity access. They cannot afford to have a dignified school time. And once that is absent, then they cannot stay in school. Look back where they're coming from, their parents. We are looking at what are the alternatives to educate parents so that they can make their own income. We're in a country where peasantry has been around for a very long time, and peasantry has almost in many ways been encouraged. The level of investment in other drivers of economic development like agriculture, agro-processing, etc. is significantly low for an economy of our nature. We all the time say Uganda is a country that depends on agriculture, yet in our budgeting, the facts around how much money we put into agriculture never really change over the years. We are making a lot of effort. As a country, we are still poor, but the drivers of the most common of our people, it's one great thing to speak about industrialization, great thing to speak about the tourism and hospitality, but the drivers of the economy are its own people. If we are able to invest in where ordinary people find their money, then ordinary people have a chance. People who went to school in the past were using things like selling coffee, the cotton harvest, etc. And many people of the 70s and 80s went to school courtesy of that. Today, we are depending on government to do the UPE program, which is a very excellent thing. But then with the dropout that we're talking about is almost hitting 90%. That is not good for everybody. That's not good for anyone. It is better to empower parents to be able to pay school fees than to look onto government to be the one to pay school fees, because at the end of the day, government does not monitor quality, government does not enforce. Teachers are better off if they can speak to the PTAs, to the parents, and they can respond. So we need a population that gets out of poverty. We've been speaking about being on the door of the middle income status for quite a time. We need to do more. Many people are slipping into poverty more than ever before with all these shocks on the economy. So for me, asking me, I need to see the budget responsive in ways that, one, you're making sure the ordinary person is able to afford their lives and therefore afford the education and well-being of their children. I love government supporting. Government cannot provide everything. Government cannot be on top of this. They have failed to be on top of this. We have access to education. Very many ill-baked graduates who can't read and write and they're done with their P7. However, these figures are covered up. I don't care. I feel we can do more to keep girls in school. I feel we can do more to make the environment at school friendly. We're happy. People are able to grow beyond 5 years now, much more than ever before. Maternal mortality is coming down. So the population is going to grow. With a country that is able to generate 40,000 jobs annually, I was reading the minister's report, 40,000 jobs on average makes about 400, 500,000 jobs in 11 years. The population has grown by 11 million. The capacity to create jobs in that period, looking at the current being a base, is 400,000 max. So you have 11 million people and you've created 400,000 jobs. You can't do much. We need to focus there more. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a lot of thoughts around that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. James. So you have pointed out a lot of pressing issues in the country, like unemployment, child dropout from schools, the maternal the mortality rate among the population. So now this brings me to my next question to you, Dr. Nankya. Do you think that there is a certain direction that the government can look at when planning for the population? Or better still, do you think that there are certain areas that the government should focus more on when designing the next financial budget?
Thank you, Generous. I personally think yes, there are those specific areas government should critically look at when budgeting. Uh, those social services that everyone needs. Actually, I believe that whatever is happening in our country, the corruption, among others, the unemployment, is because what we planned for probably does not really cater for what we need as Ugandans. I think government should focus more on health. We have seen budgets. We have seen budgets where there is a plan for the health sector, but now implementation. You get to a government hospital, and you feel so horrible for sure. So if government can actually look at those social services, including health, if we can score and at least have an 80% in the health sector, we can at least government should try its level best to have an 80% in the education sector. Let us have those basic needs, those social services like health, like education, because surely if you go to a UPE school, a USE school, you can get shocked that mere structures where pupils can sit and maybe study how to read and write are nowhere to be seen. Leave alone Kampala, go to those further districts. Having chalkboards, having desks, like those basic things where you can at least have a session of 6, maybe from morning to midday, where students can come and maybe study and then go back. Nothing, those things are nowhere to be seen. So for me, I call upon government and all those people that are responsible for planning for the country to try their level best and have more funding for such like health sector, water and sanitation, education, and also employment. According to the National Census report that was ended last month, in May this year, 50.5% of the population can be employed. That is between 14 and 64 years of age in this country. But we don't have the jobs. Even when we try to bring in investors, the kind of money that they are paying for the labor that we are providing is not worth it. So for me, I think, how about we have the people that can be employed? How about we look at labor externalization? How about it becomes formal? Guidelines put up such that government can get money from that, because even if we are not putting it to be formal as government, it is actually being done in the country. So how about formalize it and see how we can get for our people jobs out of the country if in our country it has really failed. So for me, I think that should also be taken on keenly, to be able to get some taxes for our country, but also get employment for the young people if the rules are really stipulated and what should be done is what exactly being done. So those are 4 sectors, but also agriculture should not be left behind, because I read the budget, and under the unemployment sector, what government is really looking at is PDM, one of those programs. Those programs like PDM, where young people are actually the people in the country are going to borrow money from government to put in the agriculture sector. You're being given 1 million, but you have expensive inputs, but you don't have a ready market. Even the circles that are maybe supposed to help us, like the tea circles, the coffee circles, among others, they are nowhere to be seen anymore. They're all phased out. They're all struggling. They're having challenges, and no one is there to bail them out. So for me, I think those are some of the major sectors where our government can really try to invest without leaving the infrastructure like roads behind. Because once you're having your produce, maybe in some area, now you need to transport your goods to the market, and the market is mainly in the city centers. If you're having a very terrible road infrastructure, then you're going to have challenges there. You'll end up selling your produce at a very low cost. So those are some of the areas that I really think governments should invest in, because once people are comfortable, they have the very good health care, they can take their children to school without a lot of hustling, they can also do something, they can also get maybe be anywhere on the value chain, either be in the garden, either add value where among all those produce that you have as a country, and maybe be able to get something. At the end of the day, I think people will feel like, yes, we now have a very good government that has keen interest of taking care of us. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nankya. So, by listening to you and listening to James, I can tell that, James, are you very confident in the national budget? Do you think that do you think this budget even works for the population?
Confidence, no confidence, I think, it's not up to me. There is quite a lot of things that go with the budget, because if the budget is 72 trillion as it is, and only 31 trillion can be raised through local revenue, it is a whole different issue of confidence. Like, it is a wish list as it is. It is not necessarily a budget in my own view, really. So my level of confidence could go to that extent of explanation. As a person, I feel that we have a lot of opportunities as a country. Our young people, the things that we have to do, the PDM is a good program. PDM is a good program, especially when it speaks about the mindset change. We need to invest a lot in mindset change. And mindset change should be integrated at all levels. It doesn't have to be a group of people who have mobilized themselves at a community level to benefit. This should be something that is taken to schools for people to know that what are the principles of money. Money has some principles that are clear-cut, and we should know them as part of the mindset change. Money is, one, you have to work before you get the money. Two, you have to be patient. You have to be consistent. Be working on the right thing for a long time. You have to take external information and wisely. If you look in Uganda, many people have worked hard for many years, but because of the inconsistencies in the expressions of the law and how it's applied, the inconsistencies in how we get external information, you've seen people have been working for a lot of time, and they have built in wetlands, and their houses are demolished. These are life savings of people, so it doesn't matter how hard they were working outside the law, and no one was there to tell them to stop to, or they didn't listen. You've seen people who have been growing tea for very many years, and they have invested heavily their life's earnings, etc., and all of a sudden tea crumbles and no one can do anything about it. But this information doesn't come out of the sky. This information should be there. This is information that we could have got. So we need a government that is responsive, investing in structures that inform, empower, and educate ordinary people to make the right decisions. You've had vanilla in the past. Vanilla was a top crop. Then all of a sudden it came crumbling. People had invested in it, etc. So we need early warning, early response systems. We need extension services for farmers in the villages. We need to monitor the budget. Even that little money that we're talking about, it has to be monitored. In this discussion, I represent the youth. I believe so. I am not necessarily so youthful, but I represent the youth. And when we are looking at a very high scope of unemployment, we must be looking at what can the young people do. We have to change their mindset to know that money is earned. Money is a long process. Money is consistent. Money is about doing the right thing over a long period of time. Two, we need the structures of government. When you talk about PDM, what is in it that can be for young people? When young people start up artisan skilling centers, they design things that they can earn from. How much support do they get, for example, to refrain from things like Uganda Revenue Authority that comes and they are not necessarily educating, but they're almost punishing nascent industries of young people. There's a lot of learning that comes that for you to run your own business, Not everyone can wake up and run a business. Not everyone can start at the top end of a business. People have to go through some sort of apprenticeship, learn how to manage a business, get supported for many years. So it should not be good that government agencies come to tax very nascent industries of youth. And these have not made any incomes. They are struggling. You can't access loans. You try to access loans in some of these established entities. And I mean, I could tell you that I have tried and I know what it means. The waiting time in some of these places where you've done everything you think you've done and everything at this point is sometimes up to 2 years. You're trying to process a loan for 2 years. And this is where government is telling you to go. So these are real things. These are real hurdles. Money has to come down. Requirements have to come down. We have to resonate. We can make a few solutions. We can make, I love the idea of circles. Circles are great things. How can circles be empowered to know their audiences, to know their people? How can circles get skilling, which is not in workshops and conferences where the money goes, but skilling that is by extension in nature, where people are being reached where they are educated and supported without requesting them. I mean, when you want to skill Jen, then you skill James in a conference, and then somehow you expect Jen to be skilled. No, skill Jen where she is. Send James there. You don't have to be skilled in a conference somewhere, then expect that results will turn to Jen. So we have to make community responsive, group responsive, skilling programs, access to finance that is durable, sustainable, there is mentorship. The idea that you can get quick money is very, very elusive. It is something that with all these mindset programs we are doing as a country, the youth should be targeted at that level. When we talk about corruption, someone was trying to break out, there is a word called corruption, there's one called bribery, there's one called embezzlement. The three are different in their different ways, I'm told. How do we create a business culture eliminating these three, making young people believe that diligently you can work and reach something? Those are things we have to focus on as a country, as a people. Yeah.
Thank you very much, James. So, as we have all seen, is that the young people, I love talking so much about the young people because they make such a great part of the population. So I feel like we have noticed that there's a way young people are withdrawn from the entire national budget, national census activities in the country, because they feel like at the end of the day, they don't think that they're going to be heard or addressed in the way that government does its things. So do you think that there is something that can be done to empower the young people to be more hopeful in the budget process or even national issues, so that they are more engaged other than just looking on and thinking that we are cast aside, I don't think it matters, what is the national budget? They are very clueless about these things. Do you think there is a way that they can be drawn into such things as the national budget or the census?
Thank you, Jen Ruth. For me, I think it's high time government started walking the talk, I should say. Young people have been told a lot of things. Young people have been told they are being supported, but now they want to see. We want a Uganda where you run to a hospital and get treated. If I feel like I should get at least that first aid treatment, maybe in a government hospital, then I should get it. I don't want you to keep promising me and then you're not doing what you're promising me. So for me, young people, actually the attitude of young people is simply changing because our leaders are actually promising a lot to us and they do the opposite in the end. So we have lost confidence in them. And it is actually natural. We are not really wanting to fight with them or anything, but you're promising to provide free education to me, but then the school I'm supposed to go to has no teachers, first of all. That one head teacher has to teach all the 7 classrooms, all the subjects, really. They like those social services that will make people feel like they're being taken care of. Once government really takes care of those, provide the free health education, the health services, at least there are those people who can manage to go to private sector, let them go. But those who can't now manage that, the private hospitals, the private schools, once they come to the government hospital, have they been helped? For me, I think once government now thinks about investing in such social services, people will now start believing that whatever that our leaders have said, it shall actually come to pass. So for me, that is basically what I think should be done. Nothing more, nothing less. Once you say that we have provided jobs to these people, let it be that. Let at least if a greater percentage of the same get the job, then it is okay. It's a win for you. And then that is how we shall start trusting our government, and whatever the president and his team, the fellow leaders are actually saying, we shall now try to try to help them out as they're also helping us. Otherwise, even the members of parliament, we are pushing them to doing things they're not supposed to do. They are supposed to go into the parliament, try to do policies that are going to draft policies, that are supposed to help society. But now we are sending them to pay tuition for us, to buy for us ambulances, things that they're not supposed to do. But because services are nowhere to be seen, we are losing confidence in the whole thing. Whoever is wanting to stand for something is going to eat and also support his family. So surely government, as a young person, I call upon you to try to provide the services to people. At least the social services that we can start with. That is when we shall start now giving you our 100% confidence. Otherwise, we shall not trust someone who is lying all the time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. We shall not trust you if you're not keeping your word at all. You're promising roads, we're not seeing them anywhere. You're promising education, no teachers in classes. You're promising health, just go to Mulago here. You'll get shocked. So really, once those things, those small things are catered, then we shall definitely have to trust what the leaders are saying without even questioning. Otherwise, we expect even worse if nothing is done. Thank you, Ruth.
Wow. Okay. So the government needs to do more investment in the things that affect young people from
Social services.
Social
for
services
starters.
in order for young people to be more confident
Yes.
in issues that happen, that concern them. So then that brings me to my next concern is, if you've looked at the budget, it appears that we actually don't have the money to be investing in those things, the social services, the youth-centered activities. So now that we need to look at another approach to address the issues of the young people, right? So if the government is not able to fund these things, education and all those things, so what do you think the young people, James, what do you think the young people can do so that they are not so reliant on the empty promises government?
For me, of course, government is government. And I'm not government. I don't want to be government.
Yeah, you're not.
So, young people need to be in a place where they can be given an environment to make themselves thrive. We don't expect government to do everything for them. But we need government to support those critical areas, those critical sectors, which empower everyone else to act. We need to take away a sense of hopelessness that we are all faced with, as a country. We need to take it away to the extent that I know when I go and decide to rear my goats in my village with my parents, when I go to buy medicines to give to my goats, the medicines are authentic. For the cattle keeping community, they have been dealing with ticks. You've seen a lot of diseases coming to the cattle, etc., and animals are dying. I want to go, and then I find that I can get right medicines, my animals can grow, I can sell them. Then my parents, in regard, can contribute to my skilling, etc. Government skilling is good, but it can only go so far. We want a James who has finished Senior 4, Senior 6 somewhere, in a circle or in a group or somewhere, starting a small business, should be able to count on a system support, government support in this regard, to go and pick some money. I am educated that this money is not free money. Go and invest it here where I think I belong, and I can sell whatever I produce and get money back to me. I'm supported in that regard. I need to be told as a young person growing, as a young female, that I am protected. Someone is not going to come and defile me, make me pregnant, and there is nothing anybody can do about it. I can become pregnant and my life is wasted and nothing can happen to anyone who has defiled me. My parents can look on helplessly. I want to be told that as a young woman growing up in Uganda today, with all this exposure, etc., I know how to make sexual health decisions. My community supports me. My government supports me. With all the moral fabric of society, if I have broken through and I'm sexually active and I'm 16, I'm 17, I should be able to go to a health facility, access a contraceptive, prevent pregnancy as a girl growing, and stay in school and chase my dreams. My boyfriend is busy running with me. We are not mothers and fathers at an early age because we've been told about what it means. The consequences of today's population is that people who are helpless are themselves getting other helpless people. So the multiplier effect is ripple. In 1911, when the first census happened, Uganda had 2.5 million people. 1911. Years down the road, we are at 45 coming to 46 million people according to the last census, with 11 million people added in a space of 10 years. But the social services cannot grow that fast. The education facilities can't grow. The health facilities can't grow. There is stagnation. Not that a lot of progress is being registered in this country, but the progress cannot match the population explosion that we are experiencing. 50.5% of the people in this country are below 17 years. Technically speaking, those are people who have no skills, who have no money, who have no means of production, who have no capital, etc. We need to rethink how can we support these people to stay longer in school, to get better skilling, to get better employment opportunities. How can government come in to support their trades, to increase their productivity? I feel bad when we are speaking about industrialization as a country and people who are working in factories set up by our foreign investors are actually being paid less than 150,000 shillings a month. And there are so many of them. That money cannot do anything for them in this economy. If there are many of them, we are wasting a whole generation. We are not changing anything. We shall be asked to count. When they are reading the GDP figures, they say, assuming the money was to be divided to all Ugandans. The money can't be divided to all Ugandans. It is the few people who own it that shall own it, and therefore it is their money. The rest of the people in the country shall remain poor. And for as long as many people are not productive, they are not poor, they're getting more children. It's like rich. You can live in a very poor neighborhood when you are rich. You are not rich. You're also poor because the majority of the people around you are poor. The effects of poverty will catch up with you. The criminal gangs in town you're seeing are an exact result. Someone was asking me yesterday, we have heard of notions of street children. These are girls and boys. Do street children become street men and women? Where do they go when they stop being street children? What does it mean for the planning of the country? How do we allow ourselves to see our people called street children year on year in, year on year in? For very many years we have street children. Street children grow. Do they become street men? Do they become street women? What do they depend on? Are they the criminals of today? Who are they? Where do they go? How do they add to society? Do they deduct or top up? So there are many fundamental things we should address. Just making sure that our society is functional, is good enough for everyone, where there is hope and aspiration for young people. We need to make young people believe that there is hope in this country. We need to make young people believe that their efforts of today are worthwhile. We need to make young people believe that they can be consistent on doing the right thing and that they will benefit out of it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. James. So this is now my question for you, Dr. Nankya. Do you think that there are certain things that government can do better to show a reflection between the national budget and the numbers in the country?
Sorry?
do you think that there are things that you would love the government to do better so that there is a reflection between the national budget and the numbers in the country?
Thank you, Ruth. Yes, uh, the young people are the majority of the country. Actually, the report says 78.2% are below 30 years. The young people. So, which means Uganda is a really young country. And therefore, we should major into empowering the young people. And via empowering, of course, social sciences, that one I've said it loud and clear. Everyone now knows that. But now, whatever decision government has to do, it should cater for empowering now these young people. Even if it means mindset change, it should really bring on board the young people to be empowered, maybe to be better, maybe in the employment sector, maybe to ensure that they're encouraged to work and how should they work, guiding the young people in that line. You understand? So for me, basically, given that now in Uganda, 78.2, that is a really big percentage, is below 30 years, then I think government should invest more into all those areas that look at empowering these young people and encouraging them maybe to join the money economy, and then providing for them platforms, maybe if possible tax incentives for those that want to maybe start up their small businesses, because surely you can see young people starting up something small and they have that big tax to pay. Profits, they have not yet even made any profits, but then you have taxes to pay, taxes heavier than your profits. And then we are having investors in the country who are given free land, tax incentives, 10 years, and then they are really paying us that little money, like James has said. So for me, I really call upon government to ensure that you support young people in all aspects, because you have young people in the digital area, in the digital world, I should say. Those are the ones that are really interested in ICT, that is digitalizing Uganda, and many people there are young people. Under the employment sector, we really need tax incentives as young people, especially those that have started up small businesses, to be encouraged by government, So basically, that is what I should say about that, Ruth.
Thank you very much. And I am sure when James talks about skilling, you mean more than just the formal education, chemistry, more concept, those little things. But although when I had a glance at the summary of the national budget, it appeared that there was more investment in the formal education, chemistry, and all those, other than the vocational institution, where I think that's where the skilling happens. So what are we missing? Is it that government is not aware that skilling is supposed to be a very important incentive for the young people in this country, or we are missing? What are we missing here?
I think I have fortunately been part of efforts to understand that. And to a large extent, very many Ugandan parents associate vocational with failure. I have been to, I think, Masulita or somewhere, where there's a very good vocational school that has a capacity of approximately 600, and it had 60 people. And because all the parents in that community are aspiring for their children to go to university, to get a degree, to come to Kampala and all that. And of course, in their lack of awareness, they do not know that they have more to pay when they come to Kampala and want a degree, because then their children will get to go through school, but then they will hardly get employed. On the contrary, government has made some of these available, and people should pay attention. So a more deliberate campaigning around vocational skilling in the country is needed. And people should be aware that these are really the building blocks of a resilient economy, where we can make our own things rather than study about things. So for me, it is an issue of awareness at community level, spearheaded by government, by individuals who have benefited, and also to have places where people have gone through vocational skilling can start from. Having skills is one thing, getting to use them is another. Nascent Ugandan industries started by these kinds of people, the artisans, the carpenters, the shoemakers, the tailors, should be supported. There are countries in the world, countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, which depend on their tailors as one of their biggest income earners for the country, where they are tailoring everything that is coming to the rest of the world. So these industries, whereas we are looking into the globalization of ICT and the rest, the basics, everyone in Uganda puts on a cloth, everyone in Uganda puts on something on their body, a shoe, etc. If we can decentralize, and country as it is now, we are importing approximately 90% of all our wear. We need deliberate investments in vocations that create the things that we need to use on a day-to-day basis. I feel bad that as a country, our tea industry is collapsing, yet every place you're seeing is a tea bag in this country. So we need to pay attention to the things that drive our economy and support them from the fundamentals. So skilling, we need to do awareness for it.
Additionally,
Yes, please.
additionally, government launched skilling hubs, regional skilling hubs. Though the number of young people that are taken, we have one in Kayunga for Greater Mukono. We have one in Masaka. Okay, the 18 sub-regions, at least they are skilling hubs. I usually visit those under the National Youth Council to find out what the young people are doing. They're doing tailoring, carpentry, building, baking, among others, and also saloon, among others. But now the challenge, the good thing, actually, let me first of all appreciate government for thinking about that to bring it to the young people and try to skill them. Maybe the major challenge we are now having arising from the hubs is that after skilling, then what? After skilling, what happens? Because usually they're at the skilling hubs for young people are at the skilling hub for 6 months. So after the skilling, we have no capital to put, maybe to have a sewing machine just in case you've done tailoring, you know. So I think it's high time maybe we try to advocate for maybe startup capital or something like that. The National Youth Council is pushing for a startup bill where young people will be able to get funding from government to now you start up something small, then you get a little more funding from government to support yourself or support your business, and that to also maybe we try to push for tax incentives among other things that we are thinking of. But really, after skilling, what next? So government maybe should really try to do more awareness, like James has said. We need to tell the public out there that now skilling is really not that bad. We have seen people that have gone through skilling that have maybe gotten a skill in maybe hairdressing, maybe makeup artist, and they're earning a lot of money, more than even those with PhDs, I should say. So really, I think we need to do more sensitization and awareness about skilling, and maybe support government also as the community that maybe has information on the same. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you very much. So my final concern to you, Mr. James, is that there are these government initiatives that are already being put in place, like the PDM, the skilling initiatives that the government has taken on. However, there's always a challenge where you hear young people saying that, oh, some people didn't know, or we heard that this was happening and we were not involved, and things like that. So how do you think that we can ensure that when there's an initiative, it reaches to like the grassroots young person?
Yeah, I think that's an issue of bureaucracies, an issue of deliberate awareness and campaigning, but also issues of partisanship coming. I have seen them play quite a big. Some of the things, opportunities that have come up for youth, people have labeled them NRM, and therefore other people are not welcome. I think that has been unfortunate in some parts of this country. It is an issue again of those who have succeeded to speak positively about them. For people that are in charge, I know that in the communities, the Ministry of Gender has community development officers and there are other structures of government to use media to really try as much as possible to speak about these things and make them as open as possible. I could not say that everyone can get it at the same time, but it's an issue of being consistent. If government were to carry on consistently doing this, every year we have new young people that are graduating into the cohort of being young and becoming needy of skills, etc. So if government is able to be consistent, but as Doctor has mentioned, to deliberately have a way out for the people that are skilled. I don't subscribe to the notion that every person who has got a skill should now get their own machine and so. I believe there are opportunities within every community who have already started these kind of ideas who can be scaled up and employ young people. And the role of government is to monitor to make sure that these people are actually paying young people. There is opportunity for actual skilling in a long term, such that those who have got good skills eventually can go and start their own ventures. Otherwise, from skilling directly, you cannot manage to start your own business and make it prosper with ease. It's quite a tough journey. So we need to identify apprenticeship places where young people who have got skills can actually start up their journey of employment. These places should be monitored, they should be supported, and have a graduation program of sorts. If I've employed a young person for 3-4 years meaningfully and I'm paying them, then I can encourage them to start up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. So as we wind up, I would just get closing remarks, a minute each from you can start and then James will finish.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Finally, I would like to appreciate government, first of all, for being willing to budget or plan for the country. But then, as a young person, I would prefer that you plan for what is available. James, I don't know. That is my thinking. Really, the 72 trillion that we have planned for and then the 31 that is available or that we think we can raise as Ugandans, there is a very big difference between the difference of 40 something.
Yeah.
So isn't that taking us into debts as a country? Why don't we try to budget for what we have, and then maybe if we try to get and then we try to fix the basic requirements of the country in that little that we have, as we are looking at having more. That is to the government. And then to the young people, it is our role as young people to get involved in government programs. Let it start with you as a young person to know what is happening in your country. Feel free to find information on all platforms. I am sure most of the young people, a great percentage, have a smartphone. Try to use your smartphone in a very good way to find information. Let something not happen because you've not read about it, but try your level best to find information. Read about the national budget, get to know the population census, and as a young person, have a role to play in the development of the country. Because if you do not maybe rise up as a young person, we are going to live in this country more than our elders. So let it be upon us as young people to do something, start up something small, even if it's not easy. It is not easy anywhere. So really, as a young person, try to start up something for yourself. If you're employed anywhere, try to fit in that society. Try to be a person that adds value to the country. Otherwise, I wish you the best and I thank you for listening in. Blessings to all of you and to the young people of the National Youth Council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I love Doctor. She's ending on a very religious note. Yeah, so for me, change of a country begins with the individuals of the country.
Yeah.
We are young today. Tomorrow we shall be mid-adults. A few years later we shall be old people. It is important to project our lives longer than where we are currently and make choices of things that we want to do more intentionally. It is important for the adults in our community not to give up on the young people and consistently talk and engage with them to understand their point of view, to understand their aspirations, and to reduce the roadblocks that they may encounter in their way. Because all young people have energy, all young people have ambition, all young people have optimism. That needs to be guided, that needs to be channeled to the right ways. I have seen things that I fall back in time and I say, I wish I had done this, but I had no knowledge, I had no guidance. Young people who began very small ventures when we finished school years back and remained consistent with them, they have grown those ventures. Young people who settled for no venture are now mid-adults with no venture or specialty. So we need to align ourselves early in life, choose a trade, and begin to work on it, be consistent on it. Make critical decisions, especially sexual health decisions. They are a very, very big obstacle if wrongly made, a very big opportunity if rightfully made. Focus on first things first. There is a time for everything, as it is said. Be aware. Self-awareness is important, to know who you are, where you're coming from, and have an aspiration that you're working to. Then everyone else who joins you on the road is joining you to work towards what you've already set out to achieve. People will not support you to work towards something that you even yourself don't know what it is. So that's why you need to use all the resources within your environment to pave a good future regarding what you are really working towards. Then mobilize all the resources you can to continue working towards something. Everyone should work towards something. All young people should have an ambition and keep their eyes on their ambition. Thank you very much, Ruthie.
Thank you very much, James, from the country director of Reach a Hand Uganda, and thank you very much, Dr. Nankya, the vice chairperson from NYC. And I would like to thank very much our partners, Genji and SRHR Alliance, for pushing for youth participation and raising awareness and giving us such a platform where young people can voice their opinions. Thank you very much to Sauti Plus Media Hub for hosting the podcast, and I hope to see you next time.